Okay, moving right into chapter 6. As a little girl, the machines keeping her father alive had scared Emma. She thought of them as a prison keeping him from her, but as she got older, they became reassuring. The ventilator, the IV drip, the heart monitor, a little workplace of lazy activity that replaced the tapping finger, the blinking eye, they were David's signs of life. Emma looked at his chart, now well versed in all the ways it said he wasn't waking up. Nothing out of place. Everything in order. She set it down and looked her father in his shut eyes. Okay. Dad, I'm gay. As she'd suspected, it was easier telling him than Mary Margaret, and he seemed to be taking it well. Well, yeah, he's just laying there. Although if he had woken up then, yelling about grandchildren, she'd be straight again out of sheer gratitude, or at least bisexual. That is not how that works. Not that she thought David would have a problem with it if he were awake. Mary Margaret certainly didn't. She watched Ellen, and the only problem she'd had with Brokeback Mountain was that they'd used the F word. Oh, but it was different when it was your daughter. Hell, Emma had nothing against gay people, and it was different when it was her. She felt like she'd been drafted into some big nebulous cause, one that was betrayed when she liked Hercules better than Xena. Or, hey, you're saying that like Hercules wasn't gay, because, him and Iolaus had some things going on. Well, he was probably bi, but they all were. Or played tennis instead of soccer. David hadn't replied, so it was up to her to keep the conversation going. I know, right? Came as a shock to me, too. I met this girl. No, woman. And you know how you always wanted me to marry a dentist or a lawyer? Well, she's the mayor. You can't do much better than that. She sat down on the bed. She couldn't even remember what his voice sounded like, but at times like these she could imagine she felt his presence. This kind of warmth. It took away pain. I've never felt this way before. I really want her. I want to be with her. At first, I just liked spending time with her. I thought it was because she was so smart and cool, but now all I can think about is doing stuff. Yeah, I wonder what kind of stuff that is. And don't get all judgmental about stuff, because I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be here if you hadn't. Ew, now I'm thinking about it, and we're both grossed out. I just want to facepalm. Emma stood up and set about pacing. She was successful in not thinking about Regina only insofar as she thought about Ruby instead. Go see Regina, go see her. She shook herself to clear that away. So here's the thing. Should I go to Regina? I haven't been back there since... I know what'll happen. I feel like if I spend just one more minute with her, I'll explode. Oh, she's going to explode again. Who knew? And I can't wait. I'm 18 already. What's there to wait for? Graduation day? College? Like anyone would care what grade I was in if they caught us together. It'd be bullshit. I'm not waiting. I'm either in or out. She started pacing again. Wait, when did she stop pacing? I don't know. It didn't say she stopped pacing, but it did say she started again. It felt like she couldn't control herself, like her legs were determined to bring her back to that house, and she could only divert them. Do these things ever stay secret? Would I even want that? Maybe someday I'd like to go on a date at a fancy restaurant, hold hands, tongue kiss in public. Do we ever get that? Because people would talk. They'd see me gardening for her, and her giving me a car, and... God, they'd be asking me to point out where she touched me on a doll. Yeah, because that's the thing, Emma. And let's not even talk about Ruby. Yeah, that too. Even if they could forgive her having one piece of jailbait in her pocket, they'd never understand two. Well, yeah. And something like this, it comes out sooner or later. So how long... Can I just say Mary Kay Letourneau? Because that's what we're all thinking, right? Oh, now my computer wants me to restart. No, don't do that. I'm in the middle of something. Okay. Problem solved. So how long would I have with her? I had no idea about her and Ruby until they practically told me. So what? I'd have a year, a few years, and then after that, what would my life be like? Would I have to leave town? Would she come with me? Would Ruby come with us? Would we travel the country in a VW bus, smoking reefer and protesting Vietnam? I think it's a little late for that. With an ugh, Emma dropped herself back in the visitor's chair. She covered her eyes with her hand. I can't plan for this, okay? I'm not a planner. I just need to know if it'd be worth it. Was it worth it for you with Mom? I don't know. Maybe if you'd never met her, you wouldn't be in a coma. Well, that's probable. She took her hand away from her face, staring up at the fluorescent lights droning on. People talked about the light like it was such a great thing, when it could be annoying, painful, and she'd seen amazing things happen in the dark, and thrown her panties in a bush. But then, maybe you were always going to end up like this. Maybe I could go into a coma, drop dead of a brain aneurysm, or get hit by a meteor. At least you have pleasant dreams, so maybe this sends me to purgatory when I die. At least I'll have memories of her. Emma kissed David on the forehead. Well, I mean, only if you're Catholic, because nobody else believes in purgatory. And that always brings up an interesting question. I don't think they had religion. Well, I mean, they had the Greek and Roman gods, or Greek gods. So, who knows? Emma kissed David on the forehead. As always, his skin felt like stone, cold and worn smooth. I'll go do her gardening tomorrow. We'll see what she does. And break. As soon as she fell asleep, Emma was dreaming... Oh, look, the dream is back. Emma was dreaming that she was on horseback riding with the Queen. Or that she was horseback riding with the Queen. She was naked, because that's so comfortable. The Queen had told her it would help her get used to riding. Oh my god. Oh, at least it's a dream. Because chafing. Ouch. She didn't remember undressing, just the look on the Queen's lovely face. Her beaming approval. Then, with a hand from the Queen, she was back in the saddle. It felt so different, the saddle and the horse flesh against her naked flesh, but that paled in comparison to having the Queen at her back as they rode the same horse. Ow, that's uncomfortable. Are they both naked? And is it an English saddle? Well, it had a saddle horn. I mean... It depends on how big the saddle is, because otherwise that's going to be kind of uncomfortable. Because it's uncomfortable because she's naked. Regina ready to take the reins if she lost control. Her dress... Oh, okay, she has a dress on. Her dress... How come she gets a... Oh, because she's the Queen. Okay, whatever. Her dress was as soft on Emma's skin as a loving touch. Belle's hide rippled in the dying sunlight like a pond settling down after a pebble had been thrown in. She pranced and trotted as if showing off, and Emma could just imagine her taking a graceful leap as ably as a bird. Every prancing step sent a quaking through her body that only seemed to end where the Queen's arms were wrapped securely around her waist. It took her breath away, sharing this with the Queen. It really did. The air was cool and moist in the evening. She felt it everywhere, but especially keenly on her breasts, seeming to lave her with each rise and fall of breath. Her nipples tightened and rose of their own accord, sending stinging feelings through her. Why are they stinging? Okay. An answering tingle between her legs was her clit rubbing against the saddle horn. Ow! Ow! As she bobbed up and down on Belle's back. Why are you bobbing up and down against the saddle horn? Again. Ew. Faster, dear, the Queen said in her ear. Not an order. Regina was so used to being obeyed that she knew she only had to ask. Ride like all the armies of wicked Snow White are upon us. Show me how you'd save your Queen from death and disgrace. Emma cracked the reins. You don't do that when you're riding on horseback. Swearing she could feel the air they displaced brushing against her skin. She was conscious of her whole body, aware of the heated gasps of excitement it produced in illicit pleasure. Her flesh was a quiver, shaking itself to pieces from the fast pace her mount was setting. The queen's leather riding glove, as cold as ice. Why is everything as cold as ice? Especially leather. It shouldn't be that cold. Unless she's, kept it in a cooler. Traced her spine. Close to the saddle, my love, her queen suggested, gentle as an errant whisper. You want to go faster, don't you? Emma followed the prompting of the queen's hand as if bowing to her. She bent her head over the mane of her wondrous, obedient pet and felt its hair ply her hot breasts. Okay. The queen followed suit, bending herself over Emma, like she were sheltering her from harm, like they were two spoons in a drawer. That's gonna really unbalance them, by the way. With just one tiny crack of the reins. Again, you don't do that on horseback. Belle was whinnying and taking them faster. Dude still knows nothing about horses. Hooves thundering at an awesome gallop. The jolts it produced shook Emma like bomb blasts. Her crotch felt very wet as it was mashed against the smooth leather of her saddle, feeling like a perfect cupping hand and reaching between her legs to relieve the awful pressure she felt. She sighed in delight, the sound stolen away by the air rushing past. Her thighs were spasming uncontrollably. Oh, you're going to knock me off, the queen whimpered in mock fear. She took one hand, the one still in its glove. Well, why is the other one not in a glove? Did we hear that one? Don't think it said. Anyway, the one still in its glove, away from Emma's waist, left the other splayed across Emma's belly. Her free hand wrapped around the saddle horn. Now the gloriously hard leather seemed to thump against Emma's ready clit, as if being driven by Regina. Okay. Emma swallowed hard, wishing for a quick orgasm to banish her arousal, but it was denied her. Belle's muscular flanks pumping below her, sending the saddle humping up against her needy sex. So now Belle's bucking? Is that what's going on? 'Cause the flanks are in the back. Like, in the hip. Or below the hip, I should say. Anyway, sending the saddle humping up against her needy sex, keeping her teetered on the brink of climax. Whoa, girl, Regina said, nails scratching chidingly across Emma's stomach. Emma imagined the cool heat of their sharpness going lower, raking over her clit, teasing her before going inside. Not that fast. Emma had enjoyed the friction of the saddle against her bare crotch so much that she'd allowed Belle free rein, letting the ride take her harder, like a lover bound for release. Now she pulled back on the reins, urging slowness. Her sex was left sensitive to the lightest touch. The gentle knowing slap of her hard saddle upon her womanhood had her trembling, throbbing, dripping. Ew. Easy, girl, easy, Emma soothed, tugging once more on the reins. Their flight had taken them inside a deep, dark forest where a stray branch might knock them from the saddle. If Snow White really were upon them, here they would lose her. Emma turned, nearly shaking in anticipation to see her queen's face. The queen smiled beatifically. He likes to use that word. Her fingers stroked Emma's belly, dipping into her navel. That's it. Good girl. Steady now. The slowdown had set Emma on a plateau, keeping her pleasure on an even keel, even as it started up again, pulling her higher. She couldn't look the queen in the eye anymore, not with all she was feeling. So the young princess leaned forward. She bent herself nearly doubled, over the saddle horn? Okay. Again, you obviously have no idea. She bent herself nearly double to grip Belle around the neck. Her swollen clit met the firmness of the saddle horn. That's not where the saddle horn will hit you if you bend double over the front of the saddle. It's going to hit you right in the belly. And her breast scraped against the pony's prickling hair like a bundle of wires torturing her fair skin. The queen seemed to enjoy the show. That's right, she said, clicking her heels. That's talent, considering there's one heel on one side of the horse and one heel on the other side. Click, clicking her heels to keep Belle going at a trot, keep the vibrations pulsing through Emma's young body. Just so. Just as Emma was getting used to the pain and pleasure the Queen was using to wring her out, she felt the bare and leathered hands of Regina on her hips. So she's saying Regina has leathery hands now? That's not very attractive. They were lifting her up, her bare ass sticking for a moment to the saddle with some of the fluid she'd shed. Ew. The riding glove, cold as ever, swiped a finger. Well, she wasn't wearing riding gloves. You just said that her hands were bare. Okay. The pleasure was exquisite, cutting through her world like a scalpel. Her Queen was being generous. Faster now, the Queen said, fully amused with herself. Her hands lowered Emma's body back down. Emma only realized she was sitting down on the saddle horn. Ow! Again. Dude has no clue. She was sitting down on the saddle horn as it was plunging into her slick passage. The pleasure popped inside of her. No, that was your body. Yeah, ow. Like a wineskin filled too full. Then she felt a leather tongue travel down her face, over her chest, and off her nipple. The Queen had a riding crop. "Yeah," Regina said dryly. With a slick crack, the crop came down on Belle's flank. The horse sped up, faster motion bringing Emma new pleasure as the saddle horn jogged inside her pussy. Ow, 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 ow. That's me, by the way. That's not written. It's ow. It went places Emma hadn't explored, and she whipped her hips around to take it. She pushed herself madly against the hard leather, grinding and twisting herself on it. Over her shoulder, the Queen grinned in approval. "I think you've been in control long enough. I'll take the reins now." The Queen wrapped her arms possessively around Emma to hold the reins. When she cracked them, again, not how that works, she rubbed their frayed leather over Emma's clit. Emma squealed. Well, that would take some talent to be able to, do that and bring the leather down there at the same time. Emma squealed, the noise blending in with the agitated whinny of Belle. Belle, you should just throw them on the ground and stomp on them. I said that before, and I mean it. As the Queen rhythmically tapped the horse with her riding crop as well. It was the same sort of motion she used on Emma. Belle swished her head back and forth. Okay. Tail flashing from side to side, hooves pawing the earth. The jerky motion sent ripples right through Emma. Her thighs were clamped down on the pony's sides, her sex flush against the inundated saddle, the saddle horn deep inside her. Emma swayed, repeatedly almost losing her balance, if not for Regina's fierce embrace of her. Dizzily, she latched her arms to Belle's neck, leaving only room for the Queen's hands between the horse and rider, the Queen and the ceaseless activity of the reins. Is she an octopus? Because that's the only way that all is working. Leather and bare fingers raked her clit, leaving her no choice but to come. Everything turned soft and edged, the prickle of Belle's hide against her skin. Somehow a wondrous massage. She bucked just as Belle was, her golden hair flying over her bare back and across the Queen's smiling face. The world spun. "I'm coming," she whimpered, feeling the Queen's lips on her neck, as sharp as an incitement as a riding crop ever was. She rode Belle as if the pony were a bucking bronco. Well, apparently she is a bucking bronco from the way you wrote the last section. She rode Belle as if the pony were a bucking bronco, hard jerking thrusts, pushing the saddle horn deeper, ow, and deeper into her, ramming it into a spot that sent shocks up her body. Okay, as a person who likes A-spot play, fucking no, though, because ow. Deeper and deeper into her, ramming it into a spot that sent shocks up her body and then dragging it back off. Then, quite clearly, she heard the Queen's crop strike again. Emma held on to Belle's neck for her life as the pony reared up, sandwiching Emma between the saddle and the Queen. It forced the saddle horn as deep inside her as it had ever gone, and she felt herself gush. Yeah, because you've probably just been impaled. Great. Good job. Give your queen her royal due, Regina whispered in her ear. They came back down, Belle's hooves firmly thumping on the ground. The saddle horn jerked once more inside Emma, and the girl came again. She couldn't tell anymore. Seized by her orgasm, she felt herself slip from the saddle. Regina grabbed her hand and slowly lowered her down, finally letting go. Emma slipped down like melting butter, landing in a stack of hay. Where did the hay come from? Oh, the queen had brought her back to the stables, and Emma hadn't even noticed. Well, if you were doing all that in the stables, that's even less likely. The brisk feel of the hay on her skin gave her a rush. She came down from the insurmountable highs of her orgasm like she was jumping off a cliff, finding goosebumps dotting her body, sweat washing out her skin, air refusing to settle in her lungs. She was a living mess, and she only had one thought. More! The queen appeared totally spent herself. Her body hung atop the saddle like a wet garment strung up on a clothesline. Well, that's a mental image. Slumped back with knees pressed close like she was protecting her sex or hiding what Emma had done to it. In one smooth motion, she dismounted, standing over Emma with the riding crop white-knuckled in her bare hand. You never answered my question, princess. Do you want to get fucked? Emma finally felt herself able to take a deep breath. More than anything. The queen wrapped her riding crop in her other hand. Spread your legs. Belle's done being ridden for the day. I do believe it's your turn. And that's the end of the chapter. Well, it's a good thing that was a dream. I mean, I've had some pretty fucking weird dreams in my time, but that was some utter bullshit and bollocks. And let me just throw my phone right now because fuck that shit. Yeah. I don't know. I'm just really tired of people who don't know anything about horses writing about horses. I mean, have a fucking beta reader who has ridden horses or been around them and who knows what a fucking saddle horn is. Read your fucking story. It's not that difficult. I don't know. So, like, on my Western saddle, on two of my Western saddles, the horn was maybe about that tall, but like that big around. So good luck at getting a girl who's a virgin to get that inside. And, you know, it was only like that tall, so it's not going to be hitting any A spots. The other saddle horn was about that tall, and it wasn't as big around, but it was wrapped in rawhide. So that's going to feel real great going in there, scraping up and down. I can't say that any of our saddles ever had tall saddle horns that were smooth. I mean, even the top of them were pretty fucking rough. I wouldn't want to shove one of those inside me. I don't know, maybe that's somebody's kink, but ouch. But yeah, the rest of it was just ridiculous. And the fact that they were doing it in the stable with the horse rearing and bucking and kicking, they probably all would have been injured badly. But anyways, so it was a dream. And dreams are odd, but yeah. Stupid. And that's my rant for this one. So we'll continue 7 at some other time because it's getting late now. But anyways,